Hey, what's up? How are you? Welcome to the first video of the year. A few days ago, I saw a promotion for a package of plugins and VST from the Universal Audio Company for 99 cents for 3 months. I got a good offer and I took advantage of it. I also really wanted to try these plugins before. My plan is to make a series of videos trying to produce different tracks using these plugins and VSTs. We start with the first episode showing you this future disco production. I really don't know how to label this sound, but I was inspired by Darius's album.
The time is now. Release your power. Sing it loud. Release your power. The time is now. Release your power. Sing it loud. Release your power. The time is now. Release your power. Sing it loud. Release your power.
I'm going to start from the drum group where we have all the percussive instruments. Let's listen to the comparison of how the sound of the drums changes. Let's listen to the before and after using Universal Audio plugins. The processing I did for my drums in this song was aimed at finding definition and punch. The next percussive instrument is a snare, in the same way as the kickstart track using the API channel strip modifying the high-pass filter, low-pass filter and EQ parameters. Here I am reducing -2 dB around 5 kHz, then with the EQ8 I tune the snare trying to fit the style of the track. Here we see a very drastic equalization at certain frequencies. For example, at 303 Hz I am reducing -8.31 decibels and on this side at 2000 Hz I am reducing -6 decibels. This is a lot, it is a drastic change, but it was necessary. The next two tracks that we find here on the drum rack are claps. I just used Ableton's equalizer and that's it. The next track found within this drum group is a top loop sample. Here I start with the transient shaper, which is not from Universal Audio, but I would love to see such a plugin in the Spark package from Universal Audio to modify the attack and sustain of the transients. Here I am basically modifying the sustain, nothing more, and finally I add a multiband dynamic where I compress in the area of the high frequencies and a little of the middle frequencies. Now let's listen to the two channels together after processing with the plugins. For the processing of my drum bus, which is basically processing the group of my drum group, I start with the API 2500 bus compressor. I am totally in love with the compression quality of this plugin. I give it a 10/10. Although the compression is very soft, the drums feel a little more forward. Then I add a multi-band dynamics to compress the high frequencies as this popped up too much in the mix. Plus it had a lot of dynamics, so what I decided was to start compressing a bit in the high and mid range. Then we find this very famous equalizer, the Pultec. It is an incredible equalizer. My drums take on a shine and in weight in the low frequency area. This sounds great. Then I add a saturator to define presence a bit more to my drums in the mix and an EQ. Now let's listen to the before and after processing on the drum bus. For the synth bass, I decided to use the Minimoog that also comes in the Spark package from Universal Audio. What an amazing emulation! It has a deep, heavy sound for synth basses, and you feel that analog characteristic that the true Minimoog has. In the effects, I start with the 1176 compressor from Universal Audio. Here I am looking for a little more punch, so I leave the attack a little open and the release with a fairly fast reaction. Then I add the channel strip API. I'm just using the filter, all the other tools weren't necessary to use. And lastly, this effect, which is also from Universal Audio, is a chorus effect, a modulation effect, and I really like the different styles that this has. This has 4 different styles. We can even combine them by pressing the shift button, for example, the 1 and the 3 or the 1 and the 4, and this gives a characteristic sound. I'm just using option 1. I'm going to turn the effects off and on so we can hear the transformation of this synth bass. For the next instrument, which is a synth pad, I am using the Opal Morphing Synthetizer. Honestly, it is very good, much better than the wavetable that comes in Ableton and much better than the one that Arturia has. What's amazing is that it's well optimized. It doesn't use as much CPU as I thought. Now if you ask me, would you replace Open Morphing with Omnisphere? The truth is that no, the Omnisphere continues to work very well in terms of wavetables, but morphing makes me more interactive. Let's listen in solo, but first I'll turn off the audio effects. In the effects, I start with a compressor, the 1176, just to control the dynamics a bit and make a bit of pressure. Then we go to the Pultec, which is a high-pass filter EQ, and here I am cutting around 150 Hz and cutting 3000 Hz as well. The following effect tried to place the effect in parallel, but in the end I decided to leave it in series at 100% dry/wet of the effect. The chorus effect still belongs to Universal Audio's Spark package, which is honestly pretty good. And finally, again I use the Pultec to cut more of the low and high frequencies.
Sing it loud. Release your power. Sing it loud. Release your power.
Then I added a piano. Here I just duplicate the MIDI clip to down here. The next instrument that I have here is a guitar. We are going to listen solo. We are going to deactivate the effects. For the processing of this guitar in the mix of this production, I start with the API where I use 2 tools from this channel strip, which are the high-pass filter and the compressor, which is quite good, very good there. The compression quality is very good. I added phaser. And finally, we have a chain of effects. I have the dry track where it does not contain any effects, and I have 2 more effects in parallel, which is the reverb effect that I love. I really love it. The next effect in parallel is the pretty cool echo tape too. Let's turn the effects on and off to hear the difference between before and after. On the next track I have this organ instrument that, well, the sound generated by this organ is good. I don't give it a 10, but I give it an 8 out of 10. I have found better organ instruments. What I like about Waterfall B3 is that it comes very complete to transform its sound, and you can make 1001 different sounds. In the effects I have this Pultec where I am cutting the low frequencies up to 250 Hz and the high frequencies up to 3000 Hz. Then I add Lexicon Reverb in which it will give us this result. By the way, if you want to get this project you can find it on my Gusroad.com page. I leave the link below in the description of this video. Here I have two instruments that are making a melody. The first one I am using the Polymax, which is a conventional synthesizer. It is simply based on the saw, square, triangle, and pulse oscillators. This VST is good, but it wouldn't replace my Omnisphere, which honestly has better sound. And lastly, I have this Minimoog. Finally, I have this instrument where I am using this preset and I like it because it has that characteristic sound of a Juno 106. In the effects I am using the high pass filter and the compressor. And finally, the chorus effect. And well, we reached the end of this video tutorial. This is the first video in a series where I will put these Universal Audio plugins to the test and see if it is worth paying for the membership, but I remind you right now it is 99 cents for 3 months, so go take advantage of this offer that is for time limited. Without further ado, see you in the next video.